The forgotten station Marcus Chen had exactly 3 months to live, and he planned to spend them alone. The terminal cancer eating through his liver had given him that much time, maybe less if he was unlucky. The doctors on Earth had done everything they could, but some battles couldn't be won with technology or determination. At 68, Marcus had fought enough wars to know when retreat was the only option left. The auction house on Mars Colony had seemed like divine intervention when he'd stumbled across the listing. One forgotten space station, designation Kepler 442b Orbital Platform 7, located in the Outer Rim territories. No current inhabitants, minimal maintenance records, and a starting bid so low it suggested the auctioneers just wanted it off their books. The description mentioned it had been abandoned for over 2 decades after some kind of mining operation went bust. Perfect. Marcus wanted to die somewhere quiet, somewhere the constant hum of civilization couldn't reach him. He'd spent 40 years in the Terran Space Marines, fought in 3 interstellar conflicts, and watched too many good people die in the cold vacuum of space. Now it was his turn, and he'd choose his own battlefield. The journey to Kepler 442b took 6 weeks aboard a cargo hauler that smelled like recycled air and broken dreams. The captain, a gruff woman named Rodriguez, didn't ask why an old man wanted passage to a dead system. In the outer territories, people minded their own business. She dropped him off at the station's docking bay with his supplies and a promise to check on him in 3 months, if he paid extra. Marcus had declined the welfare. Check. The station was larger than he'd expected. A sprawling complex of interconnected modules that had once housed nearly 1,000 miners and their families. Most of the sections were powered down, their corridors dark and silent. The central hub still had basic life support and gravity, powered by a surprisingly robust fusion reactor that hummed contentedly in the engineering section. He'd set up his final camp in what used to be the station commander's quarters. Large windows looked out at the gas giant the station orbited, a beautiful blue-green world with storms that raged for centuries. It was peaceful in a way that Earth's cramped cities and Mars' corporate districts could never be. Here Marcus could watch the cosmic dance of planets and moons while he waited for his own dance to end. The first week passed quietly. He'd brought enough food and medical supplies to last months, though he doubted he'd need them that long. The pain medication kept the worst of it at bay, and the station's medical bay had an impressive stock of pharmaceutical equipment that some forgotten mining doctor had left behind. It was during his second week, while he was conducting a routine check of the life support systems, that Marcus first heard the sound, a low rumbling that seemed to come from the station's outer ring, where the heavy mining equipment had been stored. At first, he'd assumed it was just the settling of metal in the vacuum of space, thermal expansion and contraction creating groans and creaks. But the sound came again the next day, and the day after that. Always from the same section, always at roughly the same time. Marcus had been a soldier long enough to know when something wasn't right. His curiosity finally overcame his desire for solitude, and he decided to investigate. The outer ring required a maintenance suit and a trip through several unpressurized sections. Marcus's aging body protested the effort, but his military training kicked in automatically. Check seals, verify oxygen, test communications. Some habits died harder than terminal patients. The mining section was a cathedral of abandoned machinery, massive excavation units designed to strip asteroids down to their component atoms, sat silent in the darkness. But as Marcus made his way deeper into the complex, he realized the rumbling wasn't coming from the machines. It was coming from below them. The station's blueprints had shown a lower level, but it was listed as storage. When Marcus finally found the access hatch, hidden behind a dismantled ore processor, he discovered why the previous inhabitants might have wanted to keep it secret. The storage area wasn't storage at all, it was a habitat, and something was living in it. The artificial environment was warm and humid, filled with a breathable atmosphere that his suit's sensors confirmed was safe. Massive heat lamps provided illumination and warmth, while automated systems maintained perfect environmental controls. The space was easily the size of a football stadium, with rocky outcroppings and what appeared to be artificially created caves. And curled in the largest of these caves, sleeping peacefully, was a dragon. Marcus had seen a lot of things in 4 decades of military service. He'd fought against alien creatures that defied description, witnessed phenomena that challenged human understanding of physics, and survived battles in environments that would kill most people in seconds. But he'd never seen anything like this. The creature was easily 50 feet long, covered in pristine white scales that seemed to glow in the artificial light. Its breathing was slow and rhythmic, each exhale creating small clouds in the humid air. Even in sleep, there was an undeniable majesty to the beast, an ancient intelligence that seemed to radiate from its form. Marcus stood frozen for several minutes, his practical mind trying to process what he was seeing. Dragons were mythology, stories told to children and featured in entertainment programs. They weren't real. They certainly weren't sleeping in the basement of an abandoned mining station. Yet here one was, very much real and very much alive. The sound that had drawn him here came again, a low rumbling purr that seemed to indicate contentment. The dragon was dreaming, its massive form shifting slightly as whatever visions filled its sleep played out. One wing, easily the size of Marcus's entire living quarters, twitched with dream movement. Marcus realized he was holding his breath and forced himself to breathe normally. His medical scanner was going crazy, detecting biological readings unlike anything in its database. The creature's life signs were strong and steady, indicating perfect health despite what must have been years of imprisonment in this artificial habitat. As he stood there, trying to decide what to do next, the dragon's eyes opened. They were the most beautiful things Marcus had ever seen. Large and intelligent, colored like molten gold with flecks of silver that seemed to shift and dance in the artificial light, and they were looking directly at him with what could only be described as recognition. The dragon raised its massive head, movements graceful despite its size. Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward the plasma pistol at his hip, then stopped. The creature wasn't displaying any signs of aggression. If anything, it seemed curious, tilting its head in an almost bird-like gesture as it studied the unexpected visitor. Then, in a voice that resonated through both the air and Marcus's bones, the dragon spoke. The Forgotten Station. Second document. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a sound that seemed to bypass Marcus's ears entirely and speak directly to his mind. It was feminine, ancient and filled with a warmth that made his chest tighten with unexpected emotion. "Welcome, Flame-Bearer. We have waited so long for your return." Marcus's training screamed at him to retreat, to report this discovery to Terran Command, to do anything except stand there gaping at a talking dragon. But something in those golden eyes held him frozen, not with fear but with a strange sense of belonging that he couldn't explain. "I think you've got the wrong person," Marcus managed, his voice crackling through the suit's communication system. "I'm just a sick old man looking for a place to die in peace." The dragon's expression somehow managed to convey both sadness and gentle amusement. "Peace, yes. That is what you seek and that is what you shall have. But you are no ordinary human, Marcus Chen. Veteran of the Void Wars, bearer of the Crimson Star. He who walked through nuclear fire on Proxima Beta." Marcus's blood ran cold. Those were classified details known only to the highest levels of military command. The incident on Proxima Beta was so secret that even mentioning it was a court-martial offense. "How do you know about that?" "We know many things, Flame-Bearer. We have been watching your species for longer than your civilization has existed, and we have been waiting for one such as you to find us." The dragon rose slowly, her massive form uncoiling with liquid grace. Even at her full height she moved carefully, as though aware that her size might be intimidating. "My name is Sirathendra, last mother of the Draconic Houses, guardian of the ancient ways. And you, Marcus Chen, are the first human to show us the proper respect." Respect? Marcus looked around the artificial habitat, noting details he'd missed in his initial shock. The caves weren't natural formations, but carefully constructed layers. The heat sources weren't random, but positioned according to some complex pattern. And everywhere he looked, he saw signs of advanced technology, seamlessly integrated with biological needs. "You mean this place was built for you?" "Built by us with the help of the previous inhabitants of this station. They were different from most humans. Curious rather than fearful, willing to learn rather than destroy." Sirathendra's voice carried a note of sadness. "They understood what we offered and they helped us prepare this sanctuary." Marcus felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. The mining operation. It wasn't for minerals, was it? The minerals were a convenient cover story. The humans who came here were researchers, scientists, and philosophers. They had discovered evidence of our existence and sought us out not for conquest or exploitation, but for knowledge. The dragon moved closer, and Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from her scales. For 23 years we lived in harmony. They learned our ways and we learned theirs. It was a golden time, a glimpse of what our species might accomplish together. What happened to them? They grew old and died as humans do. Their children chose different paths, drawn to the cities and corporations of your expanding civilization. One by one they left until only we remained. The station was abandoned, left to appear derelict while we slept and waited. Marcus processed this information, his analytical mind cataloging implications and possibilities. You said we. There are more of you? Sirathendra's great head turned toward one of the smaller caves and Marcus heard movement from within. Come, little ones. Meet the flame-bearer who has come to us in our hour of need. What emerged from the caves made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. 5 smaller dragons, each roughly the size of a large horse, approached with cautious curiosity. Their scales were the same pristine white as their mother's, but shot through with subtle colors that seemed to shift in the artificial light. They moved with the playful energy of youth, despite clearly being apex predators. My children, Sirathendra said with obvious pride. Born in exile, raised in hiding, but carrying the full heritage of our people. They have never seen the stars as we once did, never felt the solar winds beneath their wings. One of the younger dragons approached Marcus more boldly than the others, its head cocked in the same curious gesture he'd seen from their mother. When it spoke, its voice was lighter but carried the same strange resonance. Are you really a flame-bearer like in the old stories Mother tells us? Marcus looked down at his hands, still gloved in the maintenance suit. The radiation scars were hidden, but he could feel their familiar ache. I don't know what that means, kid. Show them, Sirathendra said softly. Show them why we have waited for one such as you. I don't understand. Remove your gloves, Marcus Chen. Let them see the marks you carry. Something in her tone made arguing impossible. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then slowly removed his environmental gloves. The radiation burns on his hands were old now, faded from the angry red they'd been after Proxima Beta to pale, twisted scars that covered his palms and fingers. They were ugly reminders of a mission that had saved a colony but cost him his health. The young dragons gasped in unison, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Their eyes went wide with what could only be described as awe. The sacred scars, the boldest one whispered. Mother, he really is one of them. One of what? Marcus demanded, but Sirathendra was already moving, her massive form flowing around him in a protective circle. In our oldest legends, passed down from the time when our people ruled the stars, there are prophecies of the flame-bearers, humans who would carry the mark of nuclear fire in their flesh, who would come to us not as conquerors but as allies, warriors who had looked into the heart of stellar fury and survived. Marcus stared at his hands, seeing them with new eyes. The radiation exposure from the reactor breach. But that was just bad luck, being in the wrong place when the containment failed. Was it? Sirathendra's voice carried a note of gentle challenge. Or were you exactly where you needed to be, doing exactly what needed to be done? Our legends speak of humans who would sacrifice themselves to save others, who would walk through nuclear fire if it meant protecting the innocent. That's just what soldiers do. It's the job. No, Marcus Chen, that is what heroes do. And heroes are exactly what we need now. The largest of the young dragons, one with silver highlights in his white scales, moved forward cautiously. Are you going to help us escape this place? Are you going to take us home? Home? Marcus looked around the comfortable habitat. Isn't this your home? Sirathendra's laugh was like distant thunder. This is a cage, flame-bearer. Beautiful, comfortable, and necessary for our survival, but a cage nonetheless. Our home is among the stars, where we once flew between worlds and danced in the solar winds. Our home is where we can be what we were meant to be. Marcus felt something stirring in his chest, an emotion he hadn't experienced in months. It took him a moment to recognize it as hope. And you think I can help you get there? We know you can, she said with absolute certainty. The question is whether you will choose to do so. Marcus looked around at the 6 dragons, watching him with such trust and hope in their ancient eyes. He thought about his original plan, his quiet death in solitude, his desire to slip away from the universe without fanfare. Then he thought about spending his remaining time giving these magnificent creatures something they'd never had. Freedom. Tell me what you need, he said finally. The joy that radiated from Sirathendra was almost overwhelming. First, dear Flamebearer, you need to understand what we are offering you in return. The Forgotten Station. Third document. Marcus spent the next 3 days learning about the dragons and, more importantly, learning about himself. The process began when Sirathendra insisted he remove his environmental suit entirely and breathe the habitat's atmosphere directly. He'd protested, citing contamination protocols and basic safety, but she'd been patient and persistent. Trust us, Flamebearer. Your body will adapt in ways you cannot imagine. She was right. Not only could he breathe the warm, humid air without difficulty, but he felt better than he had in months. The constant ache in his joints faded. His breathing became easier, and even the pain from his cancer seemed to lessen. When he mentioned this, the youngest dragon, who had introduced herself as Kithara, laughed with delight. Of course you feel better. You're breathing dragon air now. Mother says it has healing properties for worthy humans. Healing properties? Sirathendra settled her massive form more comfortably, her golden eyes studying Marcus with something approaching affection. Our breath carries more than air, Flamebearer. It carries life essence, cellular regeneration factors that our people have developed over millions of years of evolution. To breathe it regularly is to share in our longevity. Marcus touched his chest, where the cancer had been steadily eating away at his liver. Are you telling me dragon breath can cure cancer? We are telling you that your journey need not end as soon as you believed, the silver-scaled dragon, who called himself Veilthorn, said seriously. The Flamebearers of legend lived far longer than normal humans, strengthened by their alliance with our kind. The implications were staggering, but Marcus forced himself to focus on practical matters. You said you needed my help to escape. What exactly does that involve? Sirathendra gestured with one massive wing toward the ceiling of the habitat. This station was built around a mining vessel called the Stellar Fortune. The ship itself is still functional, hidden within the station's superstructure. The humans who lived here before used it for their research expeditions. Let me guess, Marcus said, his military mind already seeing the problem. You can't fit through the corridors to reach it. Precisely. The passages were designed for human use. We have been trapped here since the last of our human allies died 7 years ago. The ship's navigation systems require regular maintenance, and the launch sequence needs manual activation from multiple locations throughout the station. Marcus stood, pacing the length of the habitat as he thought. The space was enormous, but he was beginning to understand the scope of their problem. Even if we get you to the ship, where would you go? The outer territories are mostly uninhabitable, and the inner systems are crawling with Terran patrol vessels. We have a destination, Veilthorn said, his young voice carrying surprising authority. The sanctuary worlds beyond the galactic rim. Our scouts found them before the Great Diaspora, when our people were forced to flee the core systems. Scouts? Marcus stopped pacing. How many dragons are we talking about here? I thought you were the last. The last of our house, Sirathendra corrected gently. There are perhaps 50 of our people scattered throughout the galaxy, hidden on dead worlds and forgotten stations, waiting for the call to reunite. We are the largest group and the only one with young. If we can reach the sanctuary worlds and establish a settlement, we can send word to the others. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. These weren't just 6 dragons looking for a new home. They were the seed of an entire civilization's rebirth. And you trust me to help you get there? We trust you because of what you are, Kithara said, bouncing slightly on her feet with youthful energy. Mother showed us the station's records. You fought in 3 wars, commanded fleets, and saved entire colonies. But more than that, you've never abandoned anyone under your command. Never left anyone behind. The Flamebearer Code, another young dragon added. This one, with copper highlights in her scales, had introduced herself as Thirolin, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to stand between the innocent and harm, to burn with righteous fire when others would falter. Marcus laughed, but it wasn't bitter. You make me sound like some kind of hero. I'm just a soldier who got old and sick. You are exactly what our legends promised, Sirathendra said with absolute conviction, and we offer you something in return that no human has possessed in 1,000 years. She rose to her full height and spread her wings, the membrane between the bone structures shimmering with an inner light. The other dragons followed suit, creating a cathedral of white and silver that took Marcus's breath away. We offer you partnership with the dragon clans. Not servitude, not worship, but true alliance between equals. Your knowledge and ours, your technology and our ancient wisdom, your courage and our strength. The air in the habitat began to change, becoming somehow more alive, charged with energy that made Marcus's skin tingle. When Sirathendra spoke again, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in his bones. We offer you the chance to fly among the stars as our ancestors did, to see wonders that exist beyond the reach of normal human life, to be part of something greater than any one species could achieve alone. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks and was surprised to realize he was crying. I don't have long to live. Even with your healing breath, the cancer is too advanced. Time is relative, Flamebearer, Velthorn said quietly, and some lives burn brighter than others. Would you rather spend your remaining months lying in a bed waiting for death, or would you spend them helping us reclaim the stars? The choice, when presented that way, wasn't really a choice at all. What do you need me to do? The next several hours were spent planning. Marcus studied the station's blueprints while the dragons shared their knowledge of the hidden ship and its capabilities. The Stellar Fortune was more than just a mining vessel. It had been extensively modified with exploration equipment and, more importantly, with dragon-friendly accommodations. The previous inhabitants understood our needs, Sirathendra explained. The cargo holds were converted into flight chambers, spaces where we could stretch our wings during long journeys. The environmental systems were upgraded to support our atmospheric requirements. And the navigation systems? State-of-the-art when they were installed, but that was 20 years ago. They'll need updating with current star charts and patrol routes. Can you handle that? Marcus smiled for the first time in months. Lady, I was programming navigation computers before you were hatched. Kithara giggled. Mother is over 3,000 years old. Then I've got some catching up to do, Marcus replied, and was rewarded with laughter from all the young dragons. But as the planning continued, a sobering reality became clear. Getting the dragons to the ship would require shutting down multiple security systems, rerouting environmental controls, and creating a path through sections of the station that hadn't been pressurized in years. It was doable, but it would take time. How long? Sirathendra asked when Marcus finished his calculations. 2 weeks minimum, maybe 3 if we run into complications. And the Terran patrol schedule? Marcus pulled up the military databases he could still access with his veteran clearance codes. There's a window in about a month. The Kepler 442 system is scheduled for routine inspection, but that's just a single scout ship. If we time it right, we can be gone before they arrive. The dragons exchanged glances, some form of silent communication passing between them. Finally, Sirathendra nodded. Then we begin tomorrow. But tonight, Flamebearer, you rest, and we will show you what it truly means to dream with dragons. The Forgotten Station. 4th document. Marcus discovered what it meant to dream with dragons that very night. As he settled into the sleeping alcove the previous inhabitants had carved into one of the habitat's walls, the dragons arranged themselves in a protective circle around him. Their breathing synchronized into a deep rhythmic pattern that seemed to resonate through the artificial cavern. Close your eyes, Flamebearer, Sirathendra said softly. Let our dreams guide yours. When sleep took him, Marcus found himself soaring through space without a ship, his body somehow adapted to the vacuum and cold. Below him, stars wheeled in patterns he'd never seen from any human vessel, and ahead a distant blue world beckoned with the promise of home. But he wasn't alone in the dream. 5 smaller forms flew alongside him, their white scales gleaming in starlight, while a much larger presence guided them all toward their destination. He could feel their joy, their anticipation, their hope for a future they'd never dared imagine possible. When he woke, Marcus felt more rested than he had in years. The dragons were still sleeping around him, but their dreams had left him with something precious: certainty. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together. The work began immediately. Marcus's first task was to assess the station's hidden systems, the ones that had been carefully concealed from routine inspections. What he found amazed him. The previous inhabitants hadn't just been researchers. They'd been engineers of the highest caliber. The Stellar Fortune was indeed hidden within the station's superstructure, but the integration was so seamless that even detailed scans would miss it. The mining ship's hull had been expanded and reinforced, its cargo holds converted into spacious chambers that could accommodate creatures far larger than humans. The life support systems had been upgraded to handle both human and dragon physiological needs. This is incredible work, Marcus muttered as he crawled through access tunnels, checking systems that hadn't been activated in years. These people were geniuses. They were our friends, Thirlin said, her voice echoing through the comm system as she kept him company during the lonely maintenance work. Mother says they used to have long conversations about science and philosophy, sharing knowledge between species. What happened to their research? Their records? Stored in the ship's computer banks. Everything they learned about us. Everything we taught them about stellar navigation and energy manipulation. It's all there, waiting for someone worthy to continue their work. Marcus paused in his inspection of a power coupling, struck by the implications. Energy manipulation? Oh yes. Kithara's voice joined the conversation, bright with excitement. We can do amazing things with stellar energy, create matter from solar radiation, bend spacetime for faster travel, even heal injuries by channeling starfire through our bodies. Starfire? What you call nuclear fusion, Valethorn explained patiently. We can control it, shape it, use it to power our abilities. That's why your radiation scars mark you as one of us. You've touched the same forces we command. Marcus finished his inspection in thoughtful silence, his mind racing with possibilities. If the dragons could manipulate nuclear forces, if they could bend spacetime, then they were dealing with technology far beyond anything humanity had achieved. And they were offering to share it. The second day brought complications. While checking the ship's navigation systems, Marcus discovered that several key components had degraded beyond repair. The stellar cartography database was corrupted, and the quantum compass that allowed for accurate positioning had suffered crystal matrix failure. Can we fix it? Zirathendra asked when he reported the problems. Not with what's on the station. We need replacement parts, and they're not the kind of thing you can improvise. Marcus studied the diagnostic readings, his expression grim. Without proper navigation, we'll be flying blind. In a galaxy full of neutron stars, black holes, and hostile territory, that's suicide. The dragons exchanged worried glances, but it was young Kithara who spoke up. What if we don't need the mechanical navigation systems? What do you mean? Dragons navigated the galaxy for millions of years before humans invented computers. We feel the gravitational currents, sense the magnetic fields of stars, read the patterns of cosmic radiation like a map. Marcus stared at her. You can navigate by instinct? Not instinct, Zirathendra corrected gently. Training and natural ability working together. But it requires trust, Flamebearer. The ship's pilot must surrender control to us during transit. Allow us to guide the vessel through hyperspace. You want me to fly a starship by dragon intuition? We want you to fly a starship with dragon guidance, Valethorn said seriously. Your knowledge of human technology combined with our understanding of stellar mechanics. It's how our peoples worked together in the old days. Marcus considered this, weighing the risks against the alternatives. And you're certain you can get us to these sanctuary worlds? As certain as we are that you are meant to be here with us, Zirathendra replied. It was on the third day that Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. While rerouting power conduits to accommodate the ship's launch sequence, he found a hidden chamber that even the dragons didn't know about. It was sealed behind layers of security that had required his veteran access codes to penetrate. Inside, he found Dr. Elena Vasquez's personal lab. The records were extensive, video logs and research notes dating back nearly 25 years. Marcus watched, fascinated, as a younger version of Dr. Vasquez documented her first contact with the dragons, her growing understanding of their capabilities, and her gradual realization that humanity and dragons were meant to be allies. Day 847, her recorded image said, looking tired but excited. Zirathendra showed me how to channel stellar radiation through crystalline matrices today. The applications are staggering. We could revolutionize power generation, develop faster-than-light communication, maybe even achieve true immortality. Marcus paused the recording. Immortality. He thought about his own failing body, about the cancer that had been his death sentence. If the dragons could manipulate nuclear forces at the cellular level. Day 1203, the next log continued. The young ones are hatching soon. Zirathendra is nervous, which is understandable. These will be the first dragons born in exile, raised without access to the traditional breeding grounds, but I think they'll be special in their own way. Children of two worlds, bridges between human and dragon understanding. The final logs were heartbreaking. Dr. Vasquez documenting her own aging, her growing frailty, her desperate attempts to train a successor who never arrived. Her last entry was recorded just 3 months before her death. If someone finds this recording, if someone comes to help my friends, please know that what we've accomplished here represents the future of both our species. The dragons aren't just allies. They're family, and family never abandons each other. Marcus wiped tears from his eyes and made his decision. Sirathendra, he called through the comm system. I found Elena's personal research. I think we need to talk. When he told the dragons about the hidden lab and its contents, their reaction surprised him. Instead of excitement or curiosity, they showed profound sadness. Elena was the best of humans, Sirathendra said softly. She gave up everything to help us, spent her last years in exile to ensure our survival. We have mourned her every day since her passing. Her research could change everything, for humans and dragons alike. Yes, Velthorn agreed. But at what cost? Elena warned us about human nature, about the tendency of your species to weaponize new discoveries. This knowledge in the wrong hands could destroy both our peoples. Marcus nodded slowly. That's why she hid it. That's why she only shared it with people she trusted completely. And that's why, Kithara said with a wisdom beyond her years, she made sure the station would only respond to someone like you, someone with the sacred scars, someone who had proven their willingness to sacrifice for others. The pieces fell into place with stunning clarity. The auction hadn't been coincidence. The station's location, the timing, even his cancer diagnosis, it was all connected. Elena Vasquez had spent her final years preparing for his arrival, setting up a test that would bring the right person at the right time. She knew I was coming, Marcus whispered. She knew someone would come, Sirathendra corrected. Someone worthy of our trust, someone capable of carrying both our species into a brighter future. Marcus looked around at the dragons who had become his family in just a few short days. Then we better not disappoint her. The Forgotten Station, 5th document. The launch preparations took 12 days, and each one brought new surprises. Marcus threw himself into the work with an energy he hadn't felt in years, his body responding to the dragon-enhanced atmosphere with increasing vitality. The cancer markers in his blood, when he checked them using the medical bay's equipment, had dropped to nearly undetectable levels. It's not a cure, he told Thirlin during one of their conversations while he worked on the ship's environmental systems. It's more like a treatment that requires constant exposure. Is that a problem? She asked, tilting her head in that curious way all the young dragons had adopted. Marcus paused in his work, considering the implications. It means I can't go back to human space. If I leave you, the cancer will return. And if you stay with us, then I get to help you rebuild your civilization. Marcus smiled, realizing he'd made peace with his choice. Honestly, kid, I can't think of a better way to spend whatever time I have left. But it wasn't just his health that was changing. The constant exposure to dragon presence was affecting his mind as well. He found himself understanding their technology intuitively, grasping concepts that should have taken years of study. When Velthorn showed him how to interface with the ship's quantum navigation system, using thought patterns instead of manual controls, Marcus adapted to it as naturally as breathing. The previous flame-bearers described similar experiences, Sirathendra explained when he mentioned the phenomenon. Extended contact with our kind creates neural pathways that allow for enhanced cognitive function. You're not becoming less human, Marcus. You're becoming more than human. The ship itself was a marvel of hybrid engineering. The Stellar Fortune had been transformed from a simple mining vessel into something that belonged in neither human nor alien fleets. Its hull incorporated dragon-grown crystal matrices that could channel and focus stellar energy. The propulsion system used a combination of human fusion drives and something the dragons called solar current manipulation that allowed for faster-than-light travel without the dangerous unpredictability of hyperspace jumps. How fast can this thing go? Marcus asked as he familiarized himself with the pilot's controls. That depends on the stellar conditions and the skill of the navigator, Kithara replied. She had appointed herself his co-pilot, despite being the youngest of the dragons. In optimal conditions with good solar wind patterns, we can cross the galaxy in a few months. Months? Marcus stared at her. Human ships take years for that kind of journey. Human ships fight against the natural forces of space, Velthorn explained patiently. We work with them, like swimming downstream instead of against the current. As the launch date approached, Marcus found himself dealing with unexpected emotions. For 40 years, he'd been a soldier in human fleets, fighting human wars, protecting human interests. Now he was about to abandon his own species to help another one reclaim their heritage. The irony wasn't lost on him, but neither was the rightness of it. On the 10th day, while conducting final systems checks, Marcus received an encrypted message through the station's communication array. His blood ran cold when he saw the sender's identification. Admiral Sarah Chen, his younger sister and current head of Terran Space Command. Marcus, we know you're out there. Your purchase of the Kepler station was flagged in our databases. I'm sending the patrol ship TSC Resolute to check on your welfare. They'll arrive in 6 days. Please respond and let us know you're all right. Marcus stared at the message for long minutes, weighing his options. He could respond, convince Sarah that he was fine, maybe even buy them more time. But any communication would reveal that the station wasn't as abandoned as it appeared, and Sarah was smart enough to ask uncomfortable questions. Trouble? Sarathendra asked, sensing his distress. My sister is sending a patrol ship to check on me. They'll be here in 6 days. The dragons exchanged worried glances. Can we be ready by then? Thirlin asked. Marcus ran through the remaining tasks in his head. If we push hard and nothing goes wrong, maybe. But it'll be close. Then we push hard, Balethorn said with determination. We've waited 20 years for this chance. We won't let it slip away now. The next 5 days blurred together in a frantic rush of activity. Marcus worked 18-hour shifts, with the dragons taking turns to keep him company and assist wherever their larger forms allowed. Systems that should have taken days to calibrate were completed in hours through a combination of human efficiency and dragon intuition. It was Kathira who discovered the problem on the final day. While testing the ship's energy distribution network, she detected fluctuations in the primary power core that indicated an imminent cascade failure. How long do we have? Marcus asked, already pulling up diagnostic screens. Maybe 6 hours. 8 if we're lucky. Can we fix it? Kithara's expression was grim. The fusion chamber needs a complete crystal matrix replacement. It's not a repair we can do quickly. Marcus felt his heart sink. 6 hours wasn't enough time to replace the ship's primary power source. They needed at least 12, and that was if everything went perfectly. There is another option, Sarathendra said quietly. I'm listening. We can power the ship directly, channel stellar energy through our bodies and into the ship's systems. It's dangerous and exhausting, but it would get us to the sanctuary worlds. How dangerous?
For us, manageable.
We've done similar things before. For you, she hesitated. The energy levels required would be lethal to an unprotected human. Marcus nodded slowly. But I'm not unprotected, am I? Not anymore. Sarathendra studied him with those ancient golden eyes. No, Flamebearer. You are not. But we've never attempted this with a human before. We don't know if your body can handle the stress. Only one way to find out. The TSC Resolute arrived exactly when Admiral Chen had promised, sliding out of hyperspace with military precision. Marcus watched its approach on the ship's external monitors while the dragons made final preparations for their desperate escape attempt. Kepler Station, this is Captain Morrison of the TSC Resolute. Please respond. Marcus activated the station's communication array one last time. Resolute, this is Marcus Chen. I'm here and I'm fine. Just wanted some peace and quiet. Good to hear your voice, sir. Admiral Chen asked us to conduct a welfare check. Mind if we dock and verify everything's okay? Actually, Captain, I'd prefer if you didn't. I came out here to be alone and I'd like to stay that way. There was a pause, then Morrison's voice returned with a note of concern. Sir, are you sure you're all right? Your voice sounds different. Marcus looked around at the dragons who had gathered in the ship's command center, their white scales gleaming in the artificial light. I've never been better, Captain. Tell my sister I'm exactly where I need to be. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the station. Are you experiencing any technical difficulties? Everything's under control, Captain. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have somewhere I need to be. Marcus cut the communication and turned to Sarathendra. Ready when you are. The dragon's expression was both proud and sad. Once we begin, there's no turning back. Are you certain this is what you want? Marcus thought about his sister, about the human civilization he was leaving behind, about the quiet death he'd originally come here to find. Then he looked at the 5 young dragons who were depending on him, at their mother who had trusted him with her people's future. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The energy transfer began slowly, with Sirathindra placing one massive claw against the ship's primary power conduit. Marcus felt the change immediately, a warm tingling that spread through his body as dragon-channeled stellar energy flowed through the ship's systems. "Now you, Flamebearer," she said softly, "place your hands on the navigation console and let our power flow through. You into the ship's guidance systems." Marcus pressed his palms against the cool metal of the console and gasped as power beyond his comprehension surged through his body. It was like touching a star, like holding lightning, like becoming one with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Through the external monitors, he watched the TSC Resolute sensors go wild as impossible energy readings spiked across their instruments. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system, demanding explanations that would never come. "Launch sequence initiated," Kithara announced from her position at the co-pilot station, breaking free of the station's docking clamps. "Stellar current alignment optimal," Valethorn reported. "Navigation systems responding to Dragon guidance protocols." The ship shuddered as it pulled away from the station, its hybrid engines roaring to life with a sound like singing whales. Marcus felt every system through his connection to the navigation array, felt the ship responding to Dragon thought patterns as much as human engineering. "Hyperspace transition in 10 seconds, Thirlin called out. Through the viewports, Marcus caught one last glimpse of the TSC Resolute, its captain no doubt frantically trying to report what couldn't possibly be happening. Then the stars stretched into lines of light, and the stellar fortune disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its impossible crew toward a destiny none of them could have imagined. The Forgotten Station, 6th document. The journey through hyperspace was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Instead of the violent buffeting and disorientation of human faster-than-light travel, the stellar fortune rode the cosmic currents like a bird soaring on thermal updrafts. The ship's passage was so smooth that Marcus often forgot they were traveling between stars at impossible speeds. "How long until we reach the sanctuary worlds?" he asked during their 3rd day in hyperspace. He was learning to navigate using dragon senses, feeling the gravitational eddies and stellar magnetic fields that served as cosmic roadways. "At this rate, perhaps 2 weeks," Sirathindra replied from her position near the ship's primary power coupling. The constant energy channeling was exhausting for all the dragons, but they took turns maintaining the ship's systems. "The currents are favorable, and the young ones are adapting well to space travel." That was an understatement. The 5 young dragons had taken to zero-gravity flight with the enthusiasm of children in a playground. The ship's converted cargo holds gave them room to stretch their wings, and Marcus often found himself pausing in his work to watch them play in 3-dimensional space. "They were born for this," he observed to Valethorn, who was serving as navigator for the current shift. "Even trapped on that station, they knew they belonged among the stars." "It's in our nature," the young dragon agreed. "Dragons have always been creatures of the void. Gravity wells are just temporary stopping places for us." But it was during the 2nd week that Marcus discovered the true purpose of their journey. While reviewing the destination coordinates with Kithara, he made a startling realization about the sanctuary world's location. "These stars," he said, pointing at the navigation display. "They're in the galactic core region. That area is supposed to be uninhabitable due to radiation levels." "Uninhabitable for most species," Thirlin corrected with a mischievous smile. "But dragons have always thrived in high radiation environments. Stellar energy is food for us, not poison." "You're taking me to a place that will kill me?" "No, Flamebearer," Sirathindra said gently. "We're taking you to a place that will transform you. The dragon bond you've developed, the cellular changes from breathing our atmosphere, the neural pathways from channeling stellar energy, they've been preparing your body for this journey." Marcus felt a chill of understanding. "You're talking about permanent biological alteration." "We're talking about evolution," Valethorn said seriously. "The previous Flamebearers underwent similar changes. They became something new, something that was both human and more than human, partners with dragons not just in spirit but in biological reality. And if I can't adapt? If the radiation levels prove too much? Then you die," Kithara said with startling bluntness. "But you die as a hero who gave everything to help us reach home. The same way you would have died on that station, but with purpose." Marcus considered this revelation as the ship continued its journey toward the galactic core. The radiation levels were indeed climbing steadily, but his body seemed to be adapting to them with increasing efficiency. The dragon-enhanced physiology that had halted his cancer was now protecting him from cosmic radiation that would have been lethal to any normal human. It was on the 10th day that they encountered the first guardians. The creatures appeared on the ship's sensors without warning, massive forms that seemed to be part biology and part starship. They moved with purpose and intelligence, surrounding the stellar fortune in a formation that was clearly meant to be non-threatening, but undeniably powerful. "What are those?" Marcus asked, staring at the sensor readings that defied classification. "The Eternal Fleet," Cyrathendra said with reverence. "Dragons who chose to merge with their ships permanently, becoming guardians of the passage to the core worlds. They've been waiting here for centuries, watching for our return." Communication came not through radio waves, but through direct mental contact, a presence that touched Marcus's mind with ancient wisdom and profound joy. "Welcome home, children of the outer dark. Welcome, flame-bearer of the new age." The voice belonged to something that had once been a dragon, but was now something far greater. Marcus felt the creature's history in that brief contact. Millennia of voluntary exile, watching and waiting for the day when their people would return to reclaim their birthright. "Passage is granted," the Guardian continued. "The sanctuary worlds await your arrival. But know this, human friend of dragons. What lies ahead will test everything you believe about the nature of reality itself." The final approach to the sanctuary worlds took 3 more days, and each hour brought new wonders. The stellar density increased until the very space around them glowed with ambient radiation. Planets orbited neutron stars and white dwarfs, their surfaces gleaming with energies that would have been instantly fatal to Earth-born life. And everywhere, Marcus saw evidence of ancient dragon civilization. Crystalline structures that spanned entire star systems, using stellar energy to power technologies beyond human comprehension. Orbital cities that rode solar prominences like surfers on cosmic waves. Art installations carved from asteroids and comets, their beauty visible across light years. "How long has this been here?" Marcus whispered, overwhelmed by the scope of what he was seeing. "Millions of years," Cyrathendra replied. "This was the heart of our civilization before the Great Diaspora, before we were forced to scatter across the galaxy. Everything you see was built by dragons like us, dreamers who wanted to touch the stars themselves." The ship approached a world that defied every law of planetary science Marcus knew. It orbited a binary pulsar system, bathed in radiation levels that should have sterilized any surface. But instead of a dead rock, he saw a living planet covered in crystal forests that sparkled with their own internal light. "Dracoris Prime," Kithara breathed, pressing her face against the viewport. "The world of our ancestors. We're really here." As they entered the planet's atmosphere, Marcus felt the final transformation begin. The radiation levels spiked beyond anything his instruments could measure. But instead of killing him, the energy seemed to nourish his altered cells. He could feel his DNA rewriting itself, guided by the dragon bond that had been growing stronger throughout their journey. "Don't fight it," Cyrathendra advised gently. "Let yourself become what you were always meant to be." The landing was smooth, the ship touching down in a crystal clearing surrounded by structures that seemed to grow from the planet's surface, rather than being built upon it. As the engines powered down and the airlock cycled open, Marcus took his first breath of sanctuary world atmosphere. It was like breathing pure starlight. "Welcome to your new home, Flamebearer," Balethorn said with deep satisfaction. "Welcome to the heart of dragon civilization." Marcus stepped out onto the crystalline surface of Dracoris Prime and felt the planet's energy flowing through his altered physiology. In the distance, he could see other dragons emerging from hidden lairs and crystal caves, ancient beings who had waited centuries for this moment of reunion. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Cyrathendra said, spreading her wings to catch the stellar wind that carried whispers of welcome from across the world. "We rebuild what was lost. We reclaim our heritage, and we show the galaxy what humans and dragons can accomplish together." Looking up at the binary pulsars that painted the sky in shades of energy he had no names for, Marcus Chen smiled. He had come to a forgotten station to die in peace and solitude. Instead, he had found family, purpose, and a future beyond his wildest dreams. He had become exactly what the legends promised, a bridge between worlds, a herald of a new age, a flame-bearer carrying the light of cooperation between species toward a brighter tomorrow. The cancer that had driven him to seek death among the stars was gone, replaced by cellular structures that thrived on stellar radiation. The loneliness that had defined his final years was forgotten, surrounded as he was by beings who valued him not just as an ally but as family. And somewhere in the crystal cities that were already awakening at the touch of dragon presence, Marcus knew that other flame-bearers would eventually join him. Humans who carried the sacred scars of radiation exposure, who had proven their willingness to sacrifice for others, who were ready to take the next step in their species' evolution. The future stretched before them like an uncharted stellar map, full of wonders waiting to be discovered and adventures yet to be lived. Marcus Chen had found his peace at last. But it was not the peace of endings he had originally sought. It was the peace of new beginnings. The Forgotten Station, 7th document. 3 months after their arrival on Dracoris Prime, Marcus stood on a crystalline balcony overlooking the Valley of Awakening, watching as the planet continued its miraculous transformation. What had been dormant for millennia was coming alive again, under the influence of returned dragon presence. The crystal forests had begun to sing, their harmonic resonances creating music that could be heard across continents. Stellar energy flowed through ancient conduits carved deep into the planet's core, powering technologies that made human civilization look primitive by comparison. And everywhere dragons were emerging from long hibernation, their joy at homecoming a tangible force that seemed to charge the very air. The population census is complete, Valthorn reported, approaching with a data crystal in his claws. The young dragon had grown during their time on Dracoris Prime, not just in size but in confidence and wisdom. 2,047 adult dragons have awakened so far, with more emerging from deep hibernation every day. Any word from the outer systems? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The beacon signals they'd been transmitting since their arrival had finally reached the scattered dragon populations throughout the galaxy, and the responses were starting to arrive. 17 groups have confirmed they're en route, Cathera said, joining them on the balcony. She wore a translator collar now, a piece of dragon technology that allowed her to communicate with the various alien species that had begun making pilgrimage to the sanctuary worlds. The largest group is coming from the Andromeda Spiral Arm, 300 dragons who've been hiding in a nebula for the past 5 centuries. Marcus shook his head in amazement. The scope of dragon civilization was staggering. Even scattered and in hiding, their people had maintained their culture, their knowledge, and most importantly, their hope for eventual reunion. And the humans? He asked. That was the most remarkable development of all. Word of the dragon return had somehow leaked into human space, despite all attempts at secrecy. But instead of the military response Marcus had feared, individual humans had begun making their own journey to the sanctuary worlds. Scientists, philosophers, artists, and yes, soldiers bearing the sacred scars of radiation exposure. 43 have arrived so far, Thirolin said, landing gracefully on the balcony's edge. Dr. Sarah Martinez from the Proxima Research Station arrived yesterday. She says she's been studying dragon artifacts for 20 years, waiting for a chance to meet us directly. Marcus smiled. The human scientists were having the time of their lives, working alongside dragon scholars to unlock secrets that had been lost for millennia. The knowledge exchange was already producing results that neither species could have achieved alone. Any word from my sister? Belthorn hesitated. Admiral Chen's message arrived this morning. She's not happy. That was putting it mildly. Sarah had been sending increasingly frantic communications ever since the TSC Resolute reported the impossible energy readings from Kepler Station. The official Terran government position was that Marcus had been kidnapped by hostile aliens, despite his own recorded messages stating otherwise. She'll understand eventually, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. When she sees what we're building here, when she realizes what this cooperation could mean for both our species. Speaking of building, Sarathendra's voice echoed. From the crystal corridors behind them, the Council of Matriarchs has reached a decision about the human integration protocols. Marcus turned to see the great white dragon approaching. Her scales now shot through with veins of silver that indicated her elevation to elder status. The transformation had occurred gradually over their months on Dracoris Prime. As the planet's energies awakened dormant genetic markers in her DNA. What's the verdict? The Council agrees that humans and dragons are indeed meant to be allies. The biological compatibility, the psychological resonance, the technological synergy, all the evidence points to a shared destiny. Sira Thendra settled her massive form on the balcony, her golden eyes reflecting the stellar light. However, they also recognized the dangers of moving too quickly. Marcus nodded. He'd seen the reports from the outer territories where rumors of the dragon return were causing panic in some human populations. Fear of the unknown, combined with centuries of mythology that portrayed dragons as monsters, was creating a volatile situation. What do they propose? A gradual revelation. Selected contact with human leaders who demonstrate wisdom and openness. Cultural exchange programs with universities and research institutions. And most importantly, the establishment of neutral meeting grounds where both species can interact safely. Like what we're doing here? Exactly like what we're doing here, Kithra said with obvious excitement. The Valley of Awakening is to become the first official human-dragon cultural exchange center. We'll be the model for future cooperation. Marcus felt a surge of pride and responsibility. 3 months ago, he'd been a dying old soldier seeking solitude. Now he was helping to shape the future of 2 civilizations. The irony wasn't lost on him, but neither was the magnitude of the opportunity. There's something else, Sirathendra said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. The deep scans of the galactic core have revealed something unexpected. We're not the only ancient civilization that made their home in the high radiation zones. Other species? Other intelligences, some friendly, some neutral, some less so. The galaxy is far more crowded than either humans or dragons realized. Our return to the core worlds has attracted attention from beings who have been watching the spiral arms for millions of years. Velthorn spread his wings nervously. Some of them want to meet with us. They're curious about the human-dragon alliance, about what our combined knowledge might accomplish. And the others? The others see us as a potential threat. Too aggressive. Species working together, developing new technologies, expanding into regions they consider their territory. Marcus felt his old military instincts stirring. Are we talking about a potential conflict? We're talking about the need for caution and wisdom, Sirathendra replied diplomatically. The galaxy is vast, but resources are finite. Our expansion must be peaceful, our intentions clear, our actions beyond reproach. Which brings us to our next major decision, Thirlin said, producing a star chart that projected itself in holographic light above the balcony. Where do we establish our next settlement? The chart showed dozens of potential worlds, each marked with complex data about stellar conditions, resource availability, and strategic importance. But Marcus's attention was drawn to one particular system, highlighted in blue. What's special about that one? It's the halfway point between dragon space and human space, Kithira explained. A perfect location for a true joint colony, where both species could live and work together on equal terms. It's also claimed by something called the crystalline hegemony, Velthorn added with concern. One of the ancient powers that's been watching us with interest. Marcus studied the star chart, his tactical mind automatically analyzing approach routes, defensive positions, and supply lines. Have we made contact with this hegemony? Not directly, but they've been observing our activities here, sending scout ships to monitor our development. So far, they've maintained a respectful distance. For now. For now, Sirathendra agreed. Which is why the Council has decided to send an embassy to make formal contact, a delegation that can speak for both humans and dragons, that can demonstrate our commitment to peaceful coexistence. Marcus felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders again. And you want me to lead this embassy? We want you to be part of it, the great dragon corrected gently, along with representatives from both species, scientists and diplomats and warriors who can show the galaxy what we're capable of when we work together. Looking out over the Valley of Awakening, Marcus could see the future taking shape. Human and dragon children playing together in the crystal gardens. Scientists from both species collaborating on projects that would revolutionize their understanding of the universe. artists creating works that combined human emotion with dragon wisdom. It was everything Elena Vasquez had dreamed of when she first made contact with Sirathendra decades ago. A true partnership between species, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. "When do we leave?" Marcus asked. "The embassy ship will be ready in 6 months," Thirlin replied. "Time enough to complete your final transformation and train with the diplomatic protocols." "Final transformation?" "The radiation exposure here has been changing you gradually," Sirathendra explained. "But to survive in the deep core regions where we'll be traveling, you'll need to undergo one more enhancement. It's significant." Marcus thought about how much he'd already changed since leaving the Forgotten Station. His body was stronger, his mind sharper, his connection to stellar energies deeper than he'd ever imagined possible. "Will I still be human?" "You'll be what humans were always meant to become," Kithra said with absolute certainty. "A bridge between the possible and the actual, between what was and what could be. A flame-bearer in truth, not just in name," Valethorn added. As the twin pulsars set behind the crystal mountains, painting the sky in shades of energy that had no names in any human language, Marcus Chen M.